welcome. Let us start the fourth episode of the series entitled From Analysis to Practice. The title of this fourth part is Powtórz, przetwórz I powtórz jeszcze raz. And well, it will come as no surprise that yes, we are going to talk about revision in this short presentation, but the kind of revision that is done in the context of, well, text and communication. But before I go into details, let me just remind you that this is the fourth of episode of a series, and I strongly encourage you to watch the first three, especially the first one, where we talked about the analysis of the results of the first eighth graders exam, and this is where you will find some rationale for, you know, why the issues that we are talking about today are important. All right then, so off to recycling. There are, I believe, two important issues to remember about, to bear in mind when we think about recycling or revision. It's diversity and frequency. In other words, successful recycling should take place often enough and should be done in a varied way. So the kind of recycling that is always done through the medium of gap-filling activities will not necessarily do its job. Let us start with recycling. Why the revision session should come as often as possible. Let me quote here the pattern or the image that shows a pattern of forgetting. Let's see what is in this picture. After the initial learning, students, let's say, remember 100% of what they have been taught. Okay. However, soon after the initial learning, the amount remembered drops dramatically down, and this is the first line here. Okay, and we need a short rehearsal or a short revision, right, to boost the learner's memory to make the amount remembered go up again. Then, mind you that the pattern of forgetting is the forgetting is still there, so students will forget what we have taught them anyway, but this pace of forgetting is slightly slower, yet we need another memory boost to kind of make the amount remembered up or put it up again, and so forth. And these kind of dots that you can see in this slide, these are those memory boosters in a way, which make sure that students remember as much as possible, even after a certain period of time. Now, how do we do that? Well, if we talk about rehearsal or revision, which takes place only, only every month, this is definitely not enough. We need something to help students process and reprocess the material over and over again. What is it that we can do with a word list, for instance, to make students, process this frequently enough or often enough or several times so that, those processings work like memory boosters. For instance, you might ask students to do the following. This word list has been taken from Unit 1, so we've got the topic człowiek, and we might ask students to do the following thing. Choose 5 words you have trouble remembering, or choose 5 words with difficult spelling or with difficult pronunciation, or perhaps, to make it more personal, choose 5 words which are useful for describing your mother. If I'm pretty sure that you will agree with me that this kind of exercise makes sure that students go over the same list several times over and over again, and therefore the whole learning experience is more memorable. Why? Because the more decisions a learner takes about a language item, the more memorable the language item becomes. So just to go over this activity again, it's not about choosing 5 words for this, or 5 words for this, or 5 words for this. Actually, no, students have to choose 5 words for each category, because this adds up to the frequency of meetings with one particular, or with a particular lexical set. Okay, so this was the frequency of meetings. How about the diversity? Like I said before, if the frequency of meetings are all about doing gap-filling activities over and over again, well, diversity is definitely not there. What happens is that in the classroom, we've got different types of students. One of them perhaps will enjoy the gap-filling activities. Another will most probably enjoy working with word lists, like you've just seen. Another one perhaps will appreciate it if you allow them to use the target vocabulary and the target structures in context. Yet another one will appreciate it if he or she has a chance to hear the words in the context of somebody else's utterance. And for that, students might watch different videos that are attached to every single unit in the new repetitorium, right? So they are topic-based. I would like to show you now the video that is being recorded and prepared for Unit 1. That is, we are dealing with a lexical set człowiek. Let's take a look.
At our school, we have a special school uniform. Both boys and girls wear a shirt, a blazer and a tie. Our ties are red with blue stripes. Girls wear a skirt and boys wear trousers.
In my school, we wear a uniform. There are only boys in my school, so we wear grey trousers, white shirt, a tie and a black blazer with the school logo on it.
At school, we wear a uniform that includes a white shirt, a grey pleated skirt, black tights, black shoes, a blue blazer and a blue tie.
When I'm at school, we have to wear a school uniform. We wear
a very important thing that happens here is that, first of all the target vocabulary is decontextualized for the learner and written on the screen. And also, this activity is not, this video is not just something to watch, but it is followed by an activity in the workbook. Obejrzyj film i odpowiedz na zadane w nim pytanie, używając oczywiście jak najwięcej słów ze strony 4 w podręczniku. Why did I call it light recycling? Because, well, it is yet another way of recycling the target vocabulary, but let's face it, students will enjoy it a lot more than just doing another gap-filling or use of English activity. Another way of light recycling that is included in the new version of the repetitorium, the orange one, is through culture lessons, okay? This one, this picture that you can see in the slide now is taken from culture lesson called Culture Today, that is a part of Unit 1. And if you can have a look, the guy is wearing white boots and white trousers and white t-shirt and long khaki coat and so on, okay? So this definitely recycles the target vocabulary. Let me give you another example of Culture Today lessons. For example, in Unit 7, when students read about shopping and services, or learn about shopping and services, in the culture lesson, Culture Today lesson, they will read about what's actually really interesting to them. For instance, about Black Friday, about Buy Nothing Day. In the workbook, they will also find a text about Secondhand September. Okay, obviously, right, this is a kind of fun lesson. This is light recycling, but always followed or supplemented with an exam task. In the lesson that I've just shown you is one reading and one cultural functions lesson. Okay, so this was this light recycling, making students exposed to the target vocabulary and target structures as often as possible, but in a diverse way through different media. Okay, another way of kind of going over the same vocabulary or going over the same structures is, well, nothing else but communication. Look at this exercise. It's exercise 7, and it's the last one on the page in a lesson. What usually happens with it? The way I see it is, well, nothing. Very often this last exercise on the page is usually skipped because we've got no time for it. Okay? However, I believe that in the entire lesson, this activity number 7, which is the last one on the page, might actually have the biggest teaching or learning, for that matter, potential. Why? Let's see what's in it. Work in pairs, role play a conversation for each student below, use the phrases from the lesson, and students have a phrase box. This is something they have to use in speech to first of all recycle the material again, okay, and use it in the context of communication. Unfortunately, I would say that the communication is something that has been forgotten in a way in the process of exam preparation in the 8th grade, and this is, I would say, quite understandable, because when we have only several months to prepare students for an exam which does not include an oral component, well, let's face it, speaking in oral communication is not the most important thing to take care of. However, what the results of the 2019 exam show is that actually this is what students are missing. The biggest problems with the communicative functions that were kind of brought to light in the examination board report derive from just that. Students lack experience in communication, and perhaps this is the reason why they do not recognize the communicative context. Okay? Therefore, it is particularly important to include or welcome back the speaking activities and communicative activities into the exam preparation program, especially when we have 2 years for it. Okay? So the new approach that we are talking about here, in which the approach of 2-year exam preparation program definitely leaves a lot of room or provides us with some kind of opportunities to kind of take care of that speaking and communication again. Okay? Just to remind you, this is very important from the perspective of the exam preparation. This is what the Central Examination Board reminds us of. So przed egzaminem należy ćwiczyć z uczniami różne sposoby realizowania poszczególnych funkcji językowych w różnorodnych sytuacjach komunikacyjnych. How else can we practice communicative situation if not through communication? I would like, however, to add one more very important point to that list. Why is it important to actually include speaking and communication activities in the classroom? Well, it seems that that speaking or including speaking activities in the language course leads to a greater accuracy. And now let me tell you why. I'd like to quote Russell Stannard here. He is an experienced teacher and a teacher trainer who has recently been trying to learn Polish. In one of his videos and his channel on YouTube, he kind of gives an account of how he's doing that. And he makes a claim that, well, what really helps him to become more accurate is the fact that he speaks Polish as much as possible. He claims that fluency in speaking allows him to achieve greater levels of linguistic accuracy. How does that happen? How is that possible? Well, he claims that speaking activities will lead to greater grammatical accuracy because the more we speak, the more easily we find the words we need. And the fact that we already have the vocabulary in our heads, so we can easily recall words, this gives us more time to focus on grammar correctness. Okay? And another reason he gives for that, well, speaking is difficult, is a lot more difficult than writing, and therefore leads to better retention. And if you remember from one of the previous episodes in the series, whatever you think about, that's what you remember. Okay? So the thinking process, the reflection, the effort makes learning more memorable and makes retention easier. How do we achieve it in the classroom? Like this. Talk about a sport that you like. This is just an example of an activity. In your speech, use one negative sentence in present perfect, 3 verbs connected with physical activity, 2 names of sport disciplines, and you can continue like that. You can stop here. What happens here is that you make students practice the target language, be it vocabulary or structures, orally. This in turn leads to greater accuracy and provides them with diverse and frequent exposure or retrieval of the target vocabulary. Just a short summary. I'm pretty sure you will agree with me that so far the exam preparation process, the 8th grade exam preparation, was a bit of a race. A very intensive program, because with helping students to deal with so many different tasks in such a short period of time required a lot of strength and a lot of intensive workout. Okay? And this strategy is definitely suitable for a number of students. If, however, you work with the weakest students, with the poorest ones, with those who struggle in the language education, we have something safer. Okay, and that's a 2-year preparation program in grades 7 and 8, and this is what I have been talking about in the entire series. Let me just remind you, and again, the 3 strategies that we talked about in this series. I really encourage you to watch the other episodes if you haven't done it yet. The first strategy was about reflective learning, make students think. Again, the weakest students do not need as many exam tasks as possible. They need to do fewer exam tasks, but think about each of them a bit more, a bit longer. They also need mindful accuracy, so working on the basic structures, but in a, again, reflective way. And finally, with a 2-year exam preparation program, we've got plenty of time for the so-called revision in context. We don't have to, ask students to just learn the words of word lists by heart. We've got plenty of other opportunities. We can do videos, we can do kind of light recycling lessons, because we simply have time for it. I hope that all these strategies will prove helpful and will help you learners nail the exam. Thank you very much.